What is going on again, guys? Thank you for tuning in to Mike's Garage. Today we're going to be looking at the fabulous half-inch Drill Master hammer drill. This unit here is going to be item number 94436. This can be picked up at Harbor Freight for right around $20, give or take a coupon or two. Excuse me, I still got a little bit of a cold. So we're going to start off by looking at the unit, showing off what its features are, and then we're going to be putting this through its paces. So this does have a fairly decent length power cord. It's a very cheap, just kind of nylon cord. It's not the stiffest thing I've ever felt, but it's pretty rigid. It's not a very premium cord, but not the worst I've ever used. This does require a chuck key, which does have a little storage on the cord strain relief. It's just a little bit of rubber they added there. As you can see, it has like a little star crisscross pattern to insert the key into. The key they give you, honestly, isn't that bad. Just a piece of round stock, another piece of round stock with this probably machined out, I'm guessing. It gets the job done. I mean, as long as these little welds don't break here, which I haven't had any problems with. Goes in, it fits the chuck nice and snug. There is very little play. So I'm kind of surprised by that, pleased by that, and then it just slips back in there. I could see this through a lot of use breaking, but honestly, something else with the drill will probably go wrong first. Moving on up here, this surprisingly is not variable speed. This is just a on-off clicky-click ka-chunk switch. So that's kind of a downside of this unit, and really is very crippling for it, and I'll demonstrate that later. But it does have a lock-on feature, so you can squeeze the trigger, depress the button, let go of the trigger, and it will stay locked on until you release it. It does have a variable versatile switch there. This lever itself feels very cheap and flexy, but the switch has a really nice detent. Whether it's a high quality switch or they just faked a detent on it, I couldn't tell you. Moving on up, this has on paper a pretty small motor, and in practical use, as you'll see later in the video, it really shows. But then again, there's that price point coming back at you. It does have a decently sized cooling fan though, although it is omnidirectional, which I guess it would need to be. But moving on up towards the top of the unit here has this button here, which is very poorly labeled. That's, I believe, supposed to be a little picture of a hammer right in there. As you can see, I've been using it, and now that's a little dirty. I can't even hardly see what it is. Yeah, see, they're supposed to have a drill on this side. So is there something you shift over, and that does not work very well at all. That is extremely stiff. Going up to the front, it has a depth guide that you can put in right here with a little set screw. It's very cheaply made, not something I ever use, honestly. It's probably more for masonry use, I'm guessing, is why they give it to you, but I never use it. It also has the side handle, of course, which again has one of these very cheaply made little set screws, so you can pivot it around 360 degrees or take it off if you wish. I generally prefer to leave it on. And then coming up to the front here, whoop, gauge back in focus. Alright, so coming up to the front of the unit here, we do have a fairly cheaply made chuck. Let's see if this has any kind of name stamped in it. It doesn't, just says that it's a half inch -20 fine thread, or some millimeters. It has some little picture of like a ghost type guy on there. I don't know if that'll come out, but that's pretty interesting. I haven't really had any issues with it holding the bit though. Oh, this is good. So they actually stamped right on the plastic what kind of material this is. PA6 GF30, so glass fiber reinforced 30%. So that's nice to see, but just by the feel of it and the fact that I can squeeze this and actually have it move a little bit, it's very thin, so props for using good plastic, but you extrude it out really thin, so that's really kind of a downside. So that's a good walk around of it. So let's go ahead, plug it in, set it up, and we'll do some demos for you. Alright, the second test we have for it is driving in some screws. This is a number 10, 2.5 inches long. And we're going to be using the Torx drive, so that should give this thing every advantage that it can get to not completely make a mess of this. Alright. Alright, well, that went in pretty smooth. Let me just grab another one. Alright, so as you can see there, really when you get down to seating the screw, you have absolutely no control. You just kind of have to guess when to release the trigger. The first one went in pretty smooth, but as you can see, I mean, it's really down below the surface of the wood there. Even the second one, when I let off a little sooner, it still sank it. But that second one there, it's really sank in there. So that's one issue with it. Surprisingly, getting the screws started actually was easier than I thought. I mean, just set it in there. I had to really use a lot of downward pressure just to make sure that it didn't slip out. These are some really good screws I'm using as well. I got these over at my local big box retailer. I haven't seen them everywhere, but they're Spax. Spax? That's probably how you pronounce it. But they do have some different little engineering things in there that do help them over just a conventional screw. Like this here, I got some grip right. It's just a basic Phillips, basic thread. There's nothing fancy to these screws. So getting that upper tier screw did help us out here a little bit. Alrighty, so we got this fitted up with a 1/2 inch drill bit. This is one of the fabulous titanium nitride bits from Harbor Freight. This bit itself is actually very new, very little use on it. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'll actually go through both 2x4 thicknesses here. And I'll just show you how it does. Alright, so as you guys can see, no issue going through there. Obviously, one thing to keep in mind is that since there's no variable speed, you better have the drill bit planted or have a pilot bit or pilot hole or something already there, because otherwise it could wander if you're doing metal or something like that. And as you can see, even punching through 2 thicknesses of 2x4, I'm sure you could hear the motor really bogging in RPM, and I wasn't even really reefing on her with all my body weight. I was just putting some pressure on her to feed it through there, but I definitely could have worked it harder. But yeah, let's go ahead and we'll move on to the next test. Alrighty, so now we're going to try out the hammer mode. This is actually going to be a new one for me because I've actually never used hammer mode on this drill. So we are going to go ahead, slide this all the way over, give it a little spin, so it seems like the gearbox must have engaged it there. This is roughly a 7/32 drill bit. This drill bit was put out by Tapcon. I have used it a couple times around the house here doing some projects. I do have it fully seated in the chuck down to where like the little ridge on the drill bit is. So we're going to go ahead, give this a shot, and see how it works. Alright guys, looks like I was able to fully seat the chuck on that. Wow, that actually had like 0 to no hammering action. Couldn't hear any hammering action, couldn't feel any hammering action. That was honestly a big disappointment. I mean, I got this pressed in there as far as I can. Just switch over to regular drill mode, see if that makes any difference. Yeah, that literally didn't seem to make any difference. The chuck was able to actually drill into this, so this must be a pretty soft stone. I don't honestly know what it is. It was just randomly at the house when I got it. So overall, in conclusion, what do I think of the Drillmaster? You know, I think for the price, I don't think it really offers you much. Yeah, it's got a 1/2-inch chuck, but it's got such a small motor, it can't hardly, you know, handle those larger bits. Mostly, the only thing I've ever used this for is just throwing like a 2-3-inch cup wire wheel in there, removing some rust with it, and it would bog down real bad just running a wire wheel. And I've had, you know, inexpensive cordless drills do better. I got the Drillmaster 18-volt drill, which granted that spins pretty slow, but it doesn't really bog down when I use a wire wheel in it. This thing bogged real bad. Let's see, does it say the RPM on this? Yeah, this is 2,800 RPM, no load, and I mean it bogs down real good. You know, even drilling that 1/2-inch wood bit, which is a nice sharp wood bit through 2 pieces of 2x4. You know, again, it really, you could hear it, it really bogged it down. The other thing I don't like about this thing, aside from it not being variable speed, the gearbox in it is so poorly made and so loud, like I'm removing rust or something underneath a car per se, that I reached for the earmuffs because it was just completely shattering my eardrums apart, and you really need it to do that. And then, you know, getting back to hammer mode like we just saw, drilling through there, it had virtually no hammering action. So go ahead guys, watch out for my next video. I'm going to be comparing a cheap, inexpensive tool like this compared to a quality tool like my Milwaukee brushless hammer drill, and that'll show you really the differences of what you get for your money, because a drill like that is worth every penny. But overall guys, don't buy this drill. It's total garbage. If you need a cheap drill like that, I get it. I was at this, you know, I bought this price point, had it for about a year. I would recommend going the step down at the Harbor Freight. Get the Drillmaster 3/8 drill. It's a little cheaper and it's variable speed. And with only the 3/8 chuck, you know, and I think it's got like a 3-something amp motor. That one's really, it shouldn't bog down nearly as bad as this one, because, you know, this one you run those big bits. Or else, you know, if you like the side handle, I would not call this a hammer drill, honestly. I saw no hammering action out of it. But, you know, keep in mind, it's only good for smaller bits. They do include an extra set of brushes in the box, so that's kind of nice. And you'll probably need them, as you'll probably be burning up the motor in this thing. But overall guys, if you liked the review, give me a thumbs up, go ahead and subscribe for more wonderful videos, and I'll see you in the next one.